afternoon, guys. So, everybody's been waiting. If you're from the dark side, or you're into it, you watch it, whatever. We're all been waiting for the Brett May podcast to drop, haven't we? And I think it on YouTube. It's Sunday, I believe. I've seen some shorts by people, and so everybody's sort of everybody's all sort of waiting for that. Well, I've decided that I'm going to do a review on it because I've seen it. I've listened to it, whatever you want to call it, watched it, whatever. So let's do a review on the Brett May podcast with Terry Stone. Well, Terry Stone's invited him to join him on the Criminal Connection podcast that he's got. Don't really know much about Terry Stone. He's been involved in some remakes and the series of sort of Rise of the Foot Soldiers films, I think, and Pat Tate and that sort of thing, I think. And so, I believe he's also making a new film about the younger Pat Tate, and he's decided he's going to take a risk, and apparently he wants Brett May to play the young Pat Tate. I mean, come on, it's the dark side. Anything could happen. I mean, I could get chosen to play Julia Roberts in the next in the new Pretty Woman film if they ever make one. So come on, anything could happen. Anything could happen. We've got to remember that. So what I'm going to do is just run through it. I'll run through all bits of it. I'll tell you sort of what he speaks about, what he said in this interview. And then we'll have a little discussion in the comments if you want to, guys. If at any point you think, yeah, I like this video, or, yep, that's cool, then give it the thumbs up. Share it if you want to. And last of all, subscribe. That'd be brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yesterday we were 3 years old. 3 years old this channel's been going. And it was the birthday. So anyway, so let's dive in. So first of all, God, look at me, I've got all notes like I'm a teacher. Don't even fucking know where I am. First of all, we found out that, well, it was said that Brett had been brought up within the Class A world of drugs, okay? He goes on to tell Terry that he witnessed domestic violence from being very young. He'd always been around violence and stuff. His parents went on to separate, and his dad got a flat. And his dad was apparently smoking heroin and smoking crack, and by all accounts, sort of any type of drugs, really. It was kind of like an open house, according to Brett. Dealing was going on there. Prostitution were being run from there. And this all then, Brett's thrown into the mix because he's living there, apparently. And while he was living there, he would be told to apparently beat people up if they hadn't paid for their lay-on debt, or, things like that, basically. His dad had threatened his mum's mum, which would be his nanan, to sort of taking her telly or something, because he needed the money for drugs. He said when he came out of jail, he seen his dad. He went to his flat, and there were needles all over. He opened the fridge, and there were needles in the fridge. He opened the cupboard, and there was in the cupboards. He said there was all blood up the walls and on the ceiling. Now, Brett then goes on to say the reason that you find this blood all over the walls and ceiling is apparently when a heroin addict injects heroin, if they get an artery, blood just pisses all over. Well, why I know there's blood all over people's ceilings and walls is because the lack of respect for drug addicts have got for their environment, and if they get blood in their sort of injection, they'll squirt it out so it doesn't congeal, and and they're just not bothered, and it'll go to the ceiling, it'll go on the walls, whatever, and that's why I've known why there's drugs all over a wall. Not that it's pissing out on within arteries, because I haven't seen that, and I can't witness that, but I can't, I don't know about it anyway. So, that's the reality of that. But anyway, so he kind of then makes his dad puts him under house arrest basically. Wherever Brett goes, he takes him, he goes with him. He goes, to the gym, he'll make his dad come, and blah, blah, blah. But then it all goes tits up when Brett goes to prison again. And his dad obviously dies. I mean, did his dad die of not a overdose? I'm not sure. I think it sounds like he did, but I'm not sure. He then goes on to talk about the stabbing in the shop. The day he almost died for the first time. When he single-handedly took on hundreds of bloody men armed with knives and machetes whilst in his local shop. He tells Terry there's footage out here if you want to go and look at it on YouTube. If you want to Google it, this is what you need to Google it basically, and it'll all come up. It said how he was holding back an armed mob that were trying to push their way in through the doors, and he was just stood up against it with his foot, and one by one they were coming in and he were beating them, and oh God, I don't know. But anyway, he said he didn't realise he'd been stabbed in his neck. He didn't know about his back and his arms, or something like that. He didn't really know about his neck until the shopkeeper said that there was blood just pissing all over. The police finally came, as the shopkeeper had a few armed robberies on his shop basically, and they'd given him a panic button. So all while this attack was happening, this shopkeeper was pressing the panic button, obviously. He then goes on to thank the police for saving his life, and he said that he wouldn't be here today if it hadn't been for them. And then he remembers coming round, and the media and the news outlets are all around him, on his bedside, waiting for him to have his side of the story. The police asked him if he wanted to make a statement, to which he said, no, he doesn't. Terry doesn't press this matter. Because there is videos available on YouTube and on news articles that are in the public domain to point at the fact that Brett did put a statement in. So, I don't know. But this was never pushed, never questioned, or anything like that, basically. He then goes on to tell us about when he was another attempt on his life. He was driving down the road in Doncaster, I think it was, with his cousin, and these rain of bullets just kept, coming through the car. He does say what sort of gun it is, but I can't remember. I'm not a gun person, But with it being an attack that's happening on Brett, it's going to be the worst ever, isn't it? So whatever type of gun this is, there's a normal gun of it, and there's a high-powered gun of it, okay? And the reason he knew it was a high-powered one is because if it was just a normal one, it would have just gone through the window. But this one, the special version, went through the window, through the dashboard, everything. He tells his cousin to ram him, and it's a load of fucking crap probably. But anyway, he talks about that. And he also then says the police come again and ask him about this incident, and does he want to put a statement in, to which he says, obviously, no, he says. Yes, well, he then tells us when he used to rob dealers and, crops as well. And he goes on to speak about when he got done for blackmail, when he was making basically his presence known within his area by robbing dealers and making them pay, or he would cause shit for them if they didn't pay, basically. And he tells a story of when he'd go into people's homes where they were growing weed, and he'd take it, and then he'd extort money from them. And he said about, this one guy, he'd had enough of Brett doing this, and he went to the police and told him he was a drug dealer, this is what he was doing, but Brett was robbing him, and they gave the man immunity if they if they gave a statement against Brett, which Brett says they did, and that's why he went to prison. He went to prison for blackmail. Now, then I googled news articles, basically, and what comes up in the news articles There's quite a lot, obviously, all about his, his videos, his back and forth with people. But I was just looking at for ones that were actually wrote about news, the newspapers. So I basically just put in the search bar, Brett May, Doncaster blackmail, to which numerous things came up, like I said. And this one article, I clicked on it, and it was about him being charged with assault and burglary. Now, this is probably highly likely what he's talking about, because apparently now, if you do go in someone's house and nick your crop, and you do want to report it to police, it is classed as burglary, even though you're stealing weed. So, so it probably maybe is that what he's talking about. But what Brett doesn't mention in the podcast is the assault is against two people, one of which is a woman. So, it's all there in black and white, so, it's all in the public domain. Then there's another article that tells you about when he was stalking an ex-girlfriend. That's there in the public domain. And then one newspaper has wrote like a quick timeline thing about Brett May, right from the start of who he is, basically, and how he come onto it. And that's quite interesting. I'll pop the link in the description or in the comments, whichever. Other than that, that's it. There's no awkward questions. There's no questioning about the hit and run where he got away with when that, they hit that girl and she ended up with brain damage. There's nothing like, why didn't you turn up to fights with Danny Christie, even when you were being offered 20 grand? There's why do you lie, Brett, blatantly lie about things and then don't confront them? There's nothing. Why did you say you couldn't see when you was fighting? And he goes on and talks about all these fights that he's had in the hay bales and all this, that and the other. So my conclusion is, I can't understand why Terry Stone has not asked these questions. I think everybody on the Dark Corner, especially creators, I'm not a dark side creator, but, the ones that do sort of dedicate their niche to the Dark Corner, I think they were all rooting, and watchers and viewers alike as well, lovers and haters of Brett, that he was going to ask some tough questions. This podcast is like, Criminal Connections, so it's not like a pussyfooting about podcast, we don't want to ask that because it might hurt somebody's feelings. I got the impression that it's not, it wouldn't be we'll ask all them naughty questions, we'll ask all them, blunt questions, don't you worry. Whoever gets lucky enough to get Brett May onto a podcast, because obviously not everyone's a fan of him. I'm not a fan of him. And what I mean by lucky enough is there's so much controversy around him. Whoever did get an interview with him, you need to be hitting him with all these questions that viewers are going to want to know. You want to ask him questions that's going to give you fucking brilliant content. And that would, it would have the questions that we all know what questions we would have asked. So guys, it's out on Sunday on YouTube. So see what you all think, guys. Like I say, Terry Stone, Criminal Connections podcast with Brett May. Remember, guys, you don't know how strong you are until strength is your only option.